Hey guys, this is Vineet Pandey, and here we go for the live class setup. It's all set. How to start your preparation for UPSC English. So, first of all, very good evening to all of you, and this is my live class. Right now, we are going to deal with UPSC English. Most of the students are texting us and are asking that how to start UPSC optional English. Along with that, they're asking a question if UPSC English and UGC Net English is same. So we're going to talk about these things, and I'll also guide you what to do with these UPSC and UGC Net thing. See, UPSC English and UGC Net English. What is the difference? What is the similarity? Which one is easy? Which one is tough? First of all, UGC NET English Literature syllabus is not prescribed properly. So first of all, UGC NET का syllabus ही लोगों को पता नहीं है. Website पे whatever the syllabus they have uploaded on website is not updated, not up to the mark. They ask everything except the website syllabus. Now, when you talk about UPSC syllabus for optional English literature looks easy. When you look at the syllabus, and you already have seen the syllabus of UGC NET, अगर UGC NET का syllabus पहले देख चुके हो, जब UPSC English का syllabus देखोगे, देखने में बड़ा आसान लगता है. But the difference is that in UPSC English, even if the easy topic appears in front of you, you need to know all the depth. तो एक क्वेश्चन को आंसर करने के लिए आपको 5-5, 6-6 किताबें पढ़नी पड़ सकती हैं. So UPSC wants in-depth knowledge. UPSC wants in-depth knowledge. So they have common name, William Shakespeare, Tempest, King Lear, they have John Donne, they have W.B. Yeats. Common name, big names, big works. But when you read these works, this is not basic work, basic explanation. These are in-depth topics. So first thing, those who think that if you are preparing for UGC NET English, that will be enough for UPSC, or you think if you are preparing for UPSC and that will be enough for NET. So in both cases, your approach is wrong. So if you're preparing for UGC NET English, then remember this thing that NET has a different pattern and UPSC optional English has a different pattern. Optional English has a different pattern. Point to be noted. While UPSC wants you to go for in-depth understanding, UPSC में आपको in-depth understanding चाहिए. NET wants you to be the jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. Recently, few days back, you saw UGC NET English की topper, India level की topper. That is from our offline batch. So when she gave the speech in front of the students, she said, Vineet sir told us to be jack of all trades. Remember each and everything. But jack of all trades won't work in UPSC optional. तो पहली बात, jack of all trades यानी थोड़ा थोड़ा सब कुछ आता है, that will not work in UPSC optional English. So what to do? How to prepare? First thing that you have to note down. As we all know, most of the important content of UPSC English syllabus is taken from British history of English literature. So first, make sure you have in-depth understanding of British history. So all the students who are preparing for UPSC English, please read David Ditches. आपको in-depth knowledge चाहिए. In-depth knowledge के लिए आपको David Ditches पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. You will have to read David Ditches. Why? So that you can go for descriptive answers. When you read a lot, you develop a language, the idea to write. So if you want to write better answers in your question paper, make sure you have a habit of reading. David Ditches is very, very important. Then, one of the toughest books, Andrew Sanders. Andrew Sanders, History of English Literature. Normally, I do not recommend this book, but for UPSC, this is very, very important. आपको ये भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा. Apart from these things, once you are done with David Ditches and Andrew Sanders, and you have understood the British history, the history of English literature, Once you have understood this thing, you have to go for the individual writers. So once you're done with these things and you have got the idea of British history and English literature, go for individual writers. For example, in UPSC, William Shakespeare, Tempest, King Lear, these two books have been prescribed. So here you have to go for this man first. First, make sure you know this man. So in-depth knowledge of the writer himself. Who is Shakespeare? How he became Shakespeare? Who are the first writers to guide him? Who inspired him? If Shakespeare is the first writer, he must have imitated others. What is Shakespearean style? What are the contributions? What are the patterns and traditions that Shakespeare copied from the ancient writers? In short, this writer, his personal life, his writing style, contribution, everything. Most of the student make a mistake. बहुत सारे बच्चों की गलती क्या होती है, उनको लगता है कि ओके शेक्सपियर है, टेम्पेस्ट है, लेट्स गो टू टेम्पेस्ट डायरेक्टली, लेट्स रीड इट एज अ कॉमेडी, लेट्स रीड इट एज अ ट्रेजेडी. If you have a direct book, let's read the direct book. No, that's a blunder, that's a mistake. If you just jump to the direct book reading, you will not understand what is comedy, what is this Tempest comedy, because three unities have been followed in Tempest. If you talk about the idea of King Lear, they'll simply say what is Aristotelian idea of tragedy in King Lear, what is hamartia, what is hubris, what is peripetia, anagnorisis, catharsis. Most of the students are not prepared like this. ना ही उन्हें इस तरह से कोई पढ़ाता है, तो वो बच्चे टेंशन में आ जाते हैं, उन्हें पेपर में अच्छे से गाइड होने में दिक्कत होती है. यूपीएससी ऑप्शनल इंग्लिश इज नॉट दैट टफ. अगर आपको प्रॉपरली गाइडेंस मिल जाए, प्रॉपरली पढ़ाया जाए, तो इट इज अ स्मॉल सिलेबस, it will save your time and it is a scoring subject. But then the students, as I told you, make mistake. First they think that we have to deal with writers, selected books, so we don't need to read things in between, but they make mistakes. In British history, when they prepared, there are ages. So for example, Shakespeare के साथ start होता है, UPSC syllabus starts with Shakespeare. So they don't read what is before Shakespeare. अब before Shakespeare क्या है? So in British history of English literature, those who are preparing for UPSC, they think that okay, Shakespeare is the first writer, so we're gonna deal with Shakespeare, but they forget this thing that before Shakespeare, there was British history. So you should know the details, because they will simply come with a descriptive question that discuss pre-Shakespearean literature, pre-Shakespearean poetry, pre-Shakespearean drama. So if you are just reading Shakespeare directly without knowing British history, that will be a blunder again. So as I told you, read David Ditch's from page 1 to last page, do not miss anything. Then, in all different ages of English literature, there is gap. For example, you are reading Elizabethan, because you are reading William Shakespeare. After Elizabethan, if you go for William Wordsworth, the poetry of William Wordsworth, which have been prescribed in UPSC. So if you go for it, in between there are multiple ages, Restoration, Neoclassical, which are not directly mentioned in UPSC syllabus. Though Rape of the Lock has been mentioned, but Restoration, it's not mentioned, right? So normally students make mistake. They think, okay, read Shakespeare separately, then leave these 2-3 ages, read William Shakespeare, William Wordsworth directly. अगर एक राइटर के बाद जो गैप है और आप दूसरा राइटर पढ़ रहे हो and you don't know the difference in between, गैप में कौन कौन से टॉपिक्स हैं, कौन सा कवर हो रहा है, कौन कौन से राइटर्स हैं, then again you miss it in the descriptive answers. अब इसके बाद और क्या क्या मिस्टेक आती है? The other mistakes people do in poetry section, they think you have the writer and we have the poetry. So we will read the writer and we will just read poetry line by line. We'll understand the explanation in English and that would be all. यहाँ पे आप फंस जाते हो. This is the trap. If you know the writer in poetry, first thing you have to understand is that the age of writer, to which age, to which genre that writer belongs. किस एज से है, किस genre से that writer belongs. Plus when you go for poetry, the criticism, theory, and other methods, techniques, moments, all these things must be applied on poetry. If you're reading poetry and you're reading poetry as a normal poetry, you're not applying anything else, any extra knowledge, any literary criticism, any theoretical approach, you are doing injustice with that poetry. For example, if you're reading Andrew Marvell, Coy Mistress, but you don't know what is carpe diem, you are reading John Donne, Elegy on his mistress going to bed, but you do not know the post-colonial analysis of that poetry, you're making mistake. तो अगर बहुत सारे टीचर्स मैंने देखा है यूपीएससी ऑप्शनल इंग्लिश पढ़ा रहे हैं बट वो आपको बेसिक सिलेबस पढ़ा रहे हैं व्हाट दे आर टीचिंग यू इज ग्रेजुएशन लेवल कंटेंट ऑल ऑफ दीज टॉपिक्स हैव इन डेप्थ अंडरस्टैंडिंग नाउ इंडियन इंग्लिश लिटरेचर अगेन वन ऑफ माय स्टूडेंट आस्क्ड मी दैट सर इन इंडियन इंग्लिश लिटरेचर यूपीएससी वी हैव काउंटेड राइटर्स. So it's a very small portion of Indian English literature. So can we ignore Indian English literature? No, my dear friend, no. You have to go for history of English literature in India. So history of Indian English literature. ये पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. History of Indian English literature, the idea of Raja Rao, Kanthabura, preface, ये सब पढ़ना पड़ेगा. Along with that, you should know the major moments in Indian literature. Just like that, when you go for post-colonials, feminism. So if you read a book, just do not read the book because it is a novel, it is a drama. Read the book in depth and also go for all kind of inspirations, references, motivations, or some kind of connections, connections, literary interpretations, each and everything. When I taught King Lear in my UPSC batch, I had to take 2 to 3 days to deal with the idea of disability in King Lear. Something unique. I did study of 3 to 4 hours to find out post-colonial narrative techniques, post-colonial phraseology in Tempest. बहुत time लगता है. Do you know that when you study King Lear, there are 3 girls, right? We have Goneril, Regan, Cordelia. When they ask you to deal with these 3 female characters from feminist point of view, do you know 2 female are villain, 1 female is a heroine, and 3 of these are strong female characters. The only Shakespearean work where we do not have a weak female character. They all have strong female character. So you have to read this book like that. Now, along with this thing, most of the writers who are writing about modern literature or American literature, there is a concept of World War. World War One, World War Two. Make sure you see and take the references of both of these things in history of English literature. World War One, World War Two impact on literature, then the modernization of English literature because of World War One or Two, plus the modernized American literature. ये आपको सारा reference वहाँ पे involve करना ही पड़ेगा. You have to read. Now, sometimes the student asks me that, sir, are we supposed to read each and every book, line by line? Do we really need to go for book reading, line by line? क्या हमें line by line किताब पढ़नी चाहिए? Frankly, yes. Line by line reading is required. But if you go for line by line reading, you will be spending a lot of time and you won't be able to understand. For example, a normal reader, when he reads the book, he reads as a reader, not as a professor, not as a critic. So even if you read a normal book, you will just read it for the sake of story. So nowadays there are so many websites that provide you summary. So if you are not in a coaching class or a good coaching class, then obviously the genuine way of preparing is go line by line and do a lot of research. Now, those who are in my class, let's see how many of you live there. So those who are in my live classes or my classes, I have done these kind of line by line reading. So when I teach you, I make sure that all important quotations, all important paragraph, all important characters, all literary allusions, assumptions, or any interpretation If it is there, I should teach you. So my method is that if I am teaching you, I don't want you to read these things line by line so that I can save your time. For example, even if you read Tempest line by line, let's assume you are reading Tempest, the famous comedy by William Shakespeare, line by line, and you are a student, mostly in graduation or post graduation, you won't be able to go for interpretation of Tempest in post colonial style. Why so? Because you are reading Tempest as a reader, but to go for post colonial analysis, you must read post colonials, post colonial theories in advance. So, if you have read post colonial theories and you have done enough practice of applying those theories to a text, then only you will be able to go for the post colonial interpretation of Tempest. So, even if you do line by line reading, but you're not trained like that, you're not trained in Marxist feminist studies, you won't be able to get a proper structure or the understanding. So, the best method, as I've told you, to prepare for UPSC, start with David Deche, start with Andrew Sanders, read as much as you can, and yes, if you want to save time, if you want to perform better, and if you want to do a proper study, we do have batches for UPSC optional English. You can WhatsApp me on this number, join the proper classes where I will teach you all these tough ideas. I will tell you how to write answers. Currently, we are dealing with PYQ of the last paper. We are solving questions day by day, and along with that, I will teach you how to work on your answer writing skill. I will be checking your answer, I will be guiding for your answers, I'll upgrade those things. I'll also tell you how to use the quotations, how to write down your answer, how should be your first paragraph, how should be the conclusion part. So in short, if you want to go for proper classes of UPSC optional English, you can join us. You'll be getting each and everything in the class. If you have any other query, you can ask me any question on the given number. This is Vineet Pandey, and see you soon in a proper class. Right now we are dealing with PYQs. You can also call my office, call on these numbers. You can ask them to share the PYQ question samples so that you can prepare in a perfect way. Repeating once again, UPSC English literature syllabus is not tough if it is taught in a proper way. छोटा syllabus है, simple syllabus है, पढ़ाने का तरीका, that is important, and the highlighted thing, theoretical approach. Theoretical approach is very important in UPSC optional English. So if you're already a student of some classes, you're studying there, make sure they are teaching you using literary theory. All these texts having literary theories. So theoretical approach makes it better. With this message, thank you so much. Stay tuned. I will also come with some important books and I'll tell you how to read those books. So for those things, stay tuned and please subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.